Welcome to Evolving Element. I'm here today with Sabrina, and she's going to be talking about a lot about her craft, and hopefully we can get into it a little more deeper. What do you think about that, Sabrina? You think that's a good idea?
I think that's great. Hi, everybody.
So if you could just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, that would be amazing.
Well, I am an artist and a musician based out of Connecticut. Um, nice, yeah, where it's snowing pretty heavy right now here on Mischief Day or night, the day before Halloween. And yeah, I've been working on a few projects during quarantine, which is good. It's keeping me busy. Um, I'm working on a comic book from John Leguizamo as an inker, which is pretty dope. Yeah, it's a superhero comic, which is really great. And I'm also working on a children's book that I'm pretty close to wrapping up on. We're just doing some finishing touches. Yeah, I've been doing that kind of stuff. And during quarantine, I also kind of, to take a break from the illustration, I also play guitar. So I've been posting little snippets of my playing. It's kind of good for my brain because, when your work is kind of tiring you out, you got to find something else that you can vibe with. And that's kind of been the thing. So I'm a little bit of a Renaissance woman, I guess. I do kind of like a bunch of different things. But yeah, that's me. I've been working on that stuff. I have I know we're in the middle of October. Well, actually it's the end of October now, and I haven't really done any Inktober drawings, which I love that trend, and I did it last year and the year before that. And 2018, my Inktober drawings got turned into an actual chapbook called The Witch's Grimoire. So it's 31 witches that I drew. They went from character designs turned to an actual short comic, I guess, for whatever I was imagining at the time. It's up on my website if anyone's interested in grabbing it. Stardacetrail.com is where you can find it. But yeah, that's a kind of a short summary of what I've been up to this year.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the rundown.
Mm-hmm.
Can we start with the last thing that you just said, your name, the Star Days Trail? How did that come about?
So that's kind of like my own version of the Twilight Zone, if that makes sense.
Oh, I love it.
It's kind of it's a place where is a centralized kind of imagined place for all my stories and my music and all my workings and artwork there. It's kind of in an imagination destination, I guess. Yeah, it's kind of something I came up with this year. I kind of wanted to create this, this kind of environment with my artwork. And I thought that would be really cool to have something to kind of house all the stuff that I do.
I love it. It's an amazing name, and I'm glad that we now know that it's inspired by Twilight Zone, which is like one of my favorites.
Oh my goodness, the New Year's Eve marathon is like it's a tradition. Even I think it's streaming on Netflix now. I usually watch it, like just having it in the background is cool. It's my favorite show from the 60s, I believe. So I love it.
And everything about that show was revolutionary at that point, and
definitely
the fact that we're still being inspired today is even more beautiful.
Right.
So let's jump into this. You said you're a Renaissance woman. Were you always like that?
No. No, like I actually started playing guitar and getting into music before I even started drawing seriously. I didn't start drawing seriously until, I don't know, maybe high school, towards the end of high school. Okay. I mean, I always drew, but I never really considered an illustration career or any kind of job in comics until high school. Actually, I wanted to do concept art first for like feature films.
Okay.
For movies and stuff, because I was a big like How to Train Your Dragon fan from DreamWorks and all that stuff, and that's what I wanted to do originally. But then around 2016, I posted in the Visible Women hashtag, which was a hashtag going around highlighting women in comics and stuff. So hey, my name is such and such, hashtag Visible Women, put samples of my artwork there, and then I got an email from Edgardo Miranda Rodriguez, who was starting up his independent comic La Borinqueña, which is about a Puerto Rican superhero. And he messaged me. He's like, I know you're kind of a rookie here, but I want to give you a shot and mentor you on this comic that I'm doing. And I was like, okay, sign me up, you know, let's see what happens. So he hired me as a penciler, and I was doing pinups and inking and just a bunch of different things. So that's, I guess, in comics when I became a Renaissance woman, because I was inking, penciling, you know, doing a bunch of different stuff.
Right.
Yeah, so from there, it kind of took off. I started working on the first issue, and then Edgardo and I started working on a bunch of different projects together. The reconstruction anthology for Puerto Rico relief for Hurricane Maria. Yeah, so that's when my art kind of took off. It's only recently that I started to get back into music, because I had all this time on my hands, and I was starting to get into, like, I don't know, I started
Mhm.
listening to blues music, and I mean, I'd always listened to that stuff, but I just started really diving into it. It's funny how some things in life will just find you that way, you know. So I started getting into that, and then I thought it'd be cool to kind of post my playings on Instagram and see where that leads me. And so I kind of like, both things are kind of a heavy part of me and my presence as a creative person. This year more than ever, I'm trying to marry the two somehow. I'm not really sure, um, but I actually did like I did a short comic, I think a couple months ago, um, that I was considering kind of maybe turning into like an EP of sorts. I don't know. I kind of wanted to draw illustrations that are narrative based, but also have music to go with it. I think that'd be a really cool thing to do. So it's kind of a jumble of thoughts in my head right now. I'm sure
Mhm.
I'll organize it at some point, but yeah, I don't know what it is about this year. It's a strange year, but I kind of just been, you know, picking up a bunch of different things and, you know, throwing it at the wall and see what sticks. So,
I like that. I like that. I like that practice that you're doing. You're just
right.
experimenting at this point, and
Mm-hmm.
eventually you will get it. You said something that really resonated with me, is that sometimes things find you in life,
Mm-hmm.
and with well, this is kind of like how we are interacting right now. I found you by accident on YouTube, out of all places, and I was originally looking for. I was looking into Taino history. I was trying to
Mm-hmm.
figure out our roots, right?
Right.
And I was finding videos, and I stumbled upon yours, and I believe it was about the sun god. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember it was something along to that extent. And it's
Right.
funny because the people that you said that you work with,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I've met him in real life,
Mm-hmm.
which is crazy. I met him. I was part of a mentoring program called Crea Fraturos, and we were scheduled to meet him one day, and he was going to tell us like his journey. So
Mm-hmm.
like him working with not Run DMC, what's oh my goodness, the other comic book. I'm trying to think of the that he works with. There's Run, there's DMCC, and there's Jam Master Jay. I'm forgetting if it was Run or if it was DMC, but he has his own comic book line, and I know he was working with him when he first started out.
Right.
It was nice to hear that, and I actually got a copy of the issue that you're referring to,
Mm-hmm.
and it was this is like super like
Full
trippy for me.
circle kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And as you can see, I'm rambling because I'm just so excited. But it's a weird how these things all come together like that. So it's do you feel like these things are coincidences, or do you feel like it's just destiny? Like people are just your story's already written, so to speak.
It depends on the day and what mood I'm in, because sometimes I'll think it's all just baloney, and you know,
Mhm.
things just happen because they happen. Then other times I want to romanticize it and be like, oh, I was meant to be here. I don't have the answer. I don't know. But you kind of just live in the now, I guess, and just, I'm here in this situation. This is where I'm at. I don't know
Yeah.
where I'm going, but like I said with the music thing, I was inspired by this soundtrack from this movie a couple years ago, and I had heard it before a billion times, but for some reason these past couple months when I heard it again, I
Mhm.
don't know if it's because I'm different, but
Mhm.
I was like, oh, let me see if I can learn how to play slide guitar or something. Like, I don't know, something clicked where I was like, let me try and learn that for myself, because it's different when it's coming from you. You can like consume content and be fulfilled by that, but when you're creating it, it's different. I don't know, something about the energy was right where I just wanted to make it happen, whether it was in my music or in my art, so I don't know if it's something that like esoterical.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm a space cadet, so I'm inclined to say yes, it is.
I always throw that question out for the fellow artists out here.
Mhm.
And it's interesting. I usually get a range of uh, answers, and they usually it's always like indecisive, I would say. But
Yeah,
and,
right.
and it's like how would you know anyway? It's like there's no science to this, at least that we know.
No, the
Um,
secret is that nobody knows anything, and we're all just trying to figure it
we're
out.
all figuring it out. So you got into blues. I mean, there's so many genres to pick from.
Right.
Blues. Why blues? Tell me
I
about
th-
that.
I think because it's such a like all that kind of primitive American music is very narrative based. It's always, there's always a story in the lyrics, about pain, about sorrow, about love lost, and I love stories. I'm a storyteller, so any outlet that can be a strong force for a narrative, I will draw to. Like flies to honey, but yeah, like in the history, especially now, how poignant it is with everything that's going on politically. Just researching where that music came from and the the traditions and how many years people have been playing this kind of music. I don't know, it just fascinates me just to learn about it, and also the urban legends that come with it, like the whole
Yeah.
Robert Johnson selling his soul to the devil
So
to play
yes.
the blues. Like, that is so cool to me, and obviously it's not true, but like just the idea of it is interesting, like
Hmm.
I almost want to like illustrate something based off of that. I think that'd be really cool, but that's the inspiration that I get from it. And like I don't know, something about that music, it's a haunting quality to it. It's raw, it's real, it's different. And I'm still learning a lot about it.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, I kind of just started this year playing all that stuff. I play guitar before, so it's easy for me to transition to that. But yeah, it's something that's really resonated with me, I think, because of its heavy storytelling element.
That's interesting because some people think, oh, you're only allowed to just work in one medium because, like, say you're a musician, right?
Hmm.
You should only play music, right? Or but if you're a painter, you should only paint. But in this day and age, we have the ability to showcase all our talents, right? So,
Hmm.
and it's like you said, a Renaissance woman before, you have the ability to either mix these together or have them separate. I guess my question is here is, do you ever find it difficult to somehow have them all in one location?
Um, Sometimes I look at like my Instagram feed, if you go to my page, and I'm like,
Hmm.
this all the squares is just a mess. It's like 20 videos of me playing and then like one piece of artwork, and then
Hmm.
it's just a mess. And I wonder what my followers are thinking. I hope they like it. But at the end of the day, it's representative of me.
Exactly.
Anything that I create, I just want to share no matter what it is. And if you feel it, that kind of inspiration, that drive to create something, shouldn't matter what it is, just do what's fulfilling, whether it's music or art that day, or anything that you really want to do. I don't really want to be limited by that, because then I feel like it's kind of stifling. Like, I love all forms of storytelling. I'm a huge like theater nerd too. Like, I love Broadway and stuff like that too. I went to see Hamilton and blew my mind, so I like a bunch of different things. I'm very strange that way. I can never stay in one corner of the room. um because in addition to liking blues music, I love show tunes.
Hmm.
I grew up on Disney movies. I try to grab things from all different places, from all different creative outlets, from all different cultures, things like that. Because you never know what you're gonna find. And
That's
I
so
don't know.
true. Mhm.
Yeah, just the expansion of that, because then otherwise the Stardust Trail would be pretty small, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It always, I'm always fascinated by artists who find their niche or just find that one thing somehow to streamline all their thoughts and creativity. But
Hmm.
maybe that's just a process of an artist. Would you agree with that?
I envy those artists because I can never figure out what exactly is my thing.
Hmm.
I'm jumping from one thing to the other and just kind of absorbing a lot of different things. And I wish that I could streamline everything to a point where people see that and they're like, oh, that's Sabrina's artwork, or
Oh, so
that's the
something like
yeah,
was in
something
there.
that's really indicative of me. And I think that's the hard part. Because
Hmm.
there are a lot of people who play blues. There's a lot of people who draw comics, but if you see certain artwork, like any of the DC stuff, you're like, oh, that's Jim Lee, or like whose artwork that is. So I'm still trying to get to that point.
Right.
I'm working on it. That's a work in progress. I'll get back to you on that.
It's always working, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because people think, oh, that's the final product. That's the person that they're going to be for the rest of their career. And it's
Mm-hmm.
funny because a lot of times these artists were in the same positions that we were, right? That just as far as trying to figure out what is it that makes me different from everyone else, or just
Right.
what's my own uniqueness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like people don't see that. People don't see all the times you threw a piece of paper into the garbage pail, or
Right. Yeah, and that's the
yeah.
thing, like the process with it, like unless you're posting like your actual like speed draw, but even that's heavily edited, like all the sketches you went through to get to that one pin-up point, it's all smoke and mirrors, guys. It's all smoke and mirrors. But I mean,
Tumble. Hmm.
even before I got into music and art, so I was really little, I actually wanted to be a meteorologist. Like I
Ah.
was like obsessed with the weather. Like even though I was terrified of thunderstorms, I was
Hmm.
obsessed with it. Like I would close all the windows in my house if I heard thunder because I was so scared, but
Hmm.
and it's funny cuz I still am fascinated by weather phenomena, which actually became that short comic that I mentioned earlier that I did about it was called Signs of a Storm Brewing, and that's also on my website, stardacetrail.com. And it was just about kind of personifying thunder and lightning in the Stardaze Trail. They're two spirits that they were created out of, the ether to oppose each other. And then they ended up falling in love and now they rule the skies, just things like that. But
Yeah.
my, my interest in weather phenomena that still exists kind of crossed over into my artwork, which I found interesting. So through life, you're always changing. I feel like there's ebbs and flows on what you want to do and who you want to be. Nothing's ever definite.
Right.
Some things are, but for me, it's still very much fluid. So I managed to take that and still incorporate it into who I am now. So it's weird. It's like you're different, but you're also the same. you know.
Yes, you're transformative, right?
Mm-hmm.
You almost sound like an Autobot just now. You
Oh
one minute
man,
you're a truck, and next minute you're Optimus Prime. So it's like
that'd be cool.
that would be cool, actually.
Right.
So you mentioned Mother Nature, and I know that you said the Witches series, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Are those two connected somehow as far as Mother Nature being associated with the female empowerment?
Um, I don't that
Hmm.
that's interesting. I didn't think of that before. Honestly, it was Halloween and I just wanted to draw witches.
Okay. See, it's
I
not
mean,
that deep, Austin.
it's not. I like that insight though. That's interesting. But no, I just kind of there's so many different ways that you can interpret witches, and I thought that would be a great thing
Mhm.
to dive into over the 31 days, to draw a different witch each day. And then it became a story out of nowhere. It just kind of happened.
Mm.
But no, I've always liked witchy things. I mean, my name is Sabrina, and I've been a witch every year for Halloween when I was a kid. It's kind of like my brand. I don't know.
Mhm.
But um, no, yeah, I just always like that kind of spooky, magical spell casting kind of vibe. But yeah, I try to draw the witches in very powerful. They're almost like superheroes, each one of them. Like it's kind of like the witch Avengers or something. They're all getting together with their powers to fight the dark side or something. That's kind of basically what happens in the book. Um, I like to draw very empowered characters, so maybe subconsciously, yeah, because I usually like to create the characters that I would want to be, you know. because I grew up on a very healthy diet of anime. So anytime I see like a super powered character, I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. I want to be that, so that kind of stuck with me. So I always draw like hero type characters. And, but yeah, it's great that they're all women, and it does have that empowerment element. So I suppose, yeah, that could be it. Now
That's
that I think
awesome.
about it. Yeah.
That's really cool. I mean,
Mhm.
it's like like what we were alluding to before. A lot of the heroes were tended to be male, so it's nice to see a diverse cast of
Right.
heroes now that can, coexist with everyone else.
Exactly.
It's sad that it's taken so long for it to get to this point, but the fact is that we are prevailing is even
Right.
better.
Right.
So was that an issue for you growing up? I know you mentioned Disney and you mentioned DreamWorks, and did you ever feel like you just weren't represented on the screen?
Um, I I never really thought much of it. I usually kind of thought, the characters, everything that we got is what we got, and that you just roll with it, take it as it is.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
it
Yeah,
was
I felt
yeah,
the
it was
same way.
right. I mean, it was really cool seeing, movies on Disney Channel with like Hispanic people in it that were like, oh my God, that reminds me of my family. Like that was pretty cool. Like
Hmm.
what's that one movie? There's an old Disney Channel original movie called Gotta Kick It Up. It was about those cheer. No, it's a dance team,
Okay.
and I think they're all primarily Hispanic dance team. And the way that they talked and carried themselves, it kind of did feel like, like I knew them more because they're familiar. Like they talk the way my family talks,
Uh,
you know. And then I think in Cheater Girls,
Cheetah Girls. That's
one of
right.
them is Hispanic, so she's, and the way her mom talks is the way that my mom would talk to me, So
Hmm.
it is cool seeing that. I never felt like I couldn't relate otherwise because they weren't. Because I loved all those movies and all the cartoons that they came out with. I
Yeah.
think it's really cool to explore other cultures now because getting the same thing in popular media after a
Hmm.
while is just it's like why
Repetitive. Yeah, it's redundant. Uh-huh.
yeah, so it's cool now to see that it's all coming out because the people who grew up with that are like, okay, well, let me create a story that's based on where I'm from. And
Right.
so now the next generation is coming in and creating those stories that didn't exist when I was a kid. um I didn't particularly make me feel any less seen or anything like that. I know other people's experiences are different,
Mm.
but I think it's cool now to see, especially to see more women in the forefront. And because, like I said, I grew up on anime, and I usually watched the anime that was geared toward boys, which
Hmm.
was like almost all of
Good.
it,
Okay.
you know. So it's a lot. I watched a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh, Dragon Ball Z, and it's a bunch of strong powered dudes.
Yeah.
So now that I'm older and I'm seeing in the MCU like Scarlet Witch, Captain Marvel, it's blowing my mind and I love it. It's great.
That's cool. You mentioned
Mhm.
a lot of characters just now, which it's all in the works. They're all coming out little by little,
Yeah.
and it's nice. It's healthy. It's
Mhm.
realistic, and possibly holistic to see the bigger picture. That's why I always marveled. No pun intended. I always marveled over Marvel because
Mhm.
they used to have more of the diverse characters compared to DC, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, you said that at first when you were younger, it wasn't much of a big deal. And I felt the same way too, because when I was younger, I would literally think like, oh, they're just all Puerto Rican. I just, I would just
Yeah.
literally just put my head into like, well, I got a titi that looks like that or a tío that looks like that. So
Right.
it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, I guess Captain America, he has the same colors. I mean, why not? So I used to think things like that. But
Right.
nowadays it's I like the fact that we're writing our own stories and not someone else writing our stories. And even if they were writing our stories, I still feel kind of proud in a sense, like we are at least getting recognized, even if it might be a negative characterization, and this might be controversial, but at least we're still on the, we're still existing somehow, and we can always
Yeah.
change that narrative as time goes by.
Right. And I think especially if you're portraying certain stereotypes, that's kind of I think that rubs people the wrong way. They don't want to be represented in some way. And I can see that cuz
Mhm.
like for if you want to take, you know, Puerto Ricans for example, like Puerto Ricans on the island are a lot different than Puerto Ricans in New York, and Puerto Ricans in New York are a lot different than Puerto Ricans anywhere else. You know, like
Yeah.
I'm not a New Yorican at all. Like I grew up in the suburbs of Connecticut. I don't know anything about the boroughs. Like, you know, and that's the thing. Like I don't want everyone to think that we're all, you know, tiny Lin-Manuel Miranda's running around. Like there's we're different. There's a lot of different, like I play blues music, you know, and
Mhm.
there's a
Yeah.
lot that you can be as a Puerto
Mhm.
Rican, not just one thing,
That's
you
the
know.
power of it. That's the power of our, you know, of all cultures, right? Is so much diversity in a lot of cultures today, you know, especially now that, you know, it's more easier to be you know, interracial.
Hmm.
And, you know, people now are accepting, oh, you're actually more than one culture. That's crazy. That's cool. Like I said before, like our culture specifically is so diverse that,
Right.
you know, I would never, sometimes I'll be watching something or reading something like, oh shoot, I didn't know they're Puerto Rican, because they're that much different.
Hmm.
And like you said, you're from Connecticut, I'm from New York. So it's like, no matter where you are geographic, you know, location, you have this certain swagger about you. You have a certain uniqueness to you that maybe we take for granted. Like I
Right.
probably take for granted that I'm from New York and maybe you from Connecticut, but it's good to notice that the differences, you know, it just, what's the word I'm looking for? Just value our differences instead of separating because of them. And that's
Right.
cool.
Definitely.
That's a good point you made. Like, yeah,
Hmm.
we're different, but we still have this common thread that we are diverse and we have
No,
a lot of
yeah,
the
like
same roots.
don't get me wrong. I love salsa music and all that's like other cultural stuff. I have a cuatro I still have to learn how to play. You know, and it's interesting, especially learning about all the Taino stuff, because I was researching it because that's the origin of La Borinqueña's powers. She's granted her powers from Atabe, who's the mother deity of Taino myth. You know, so learning about all that stuff is fascinating because I didn't know that there was such a, you know, such a heavy mythology surrounding the island. I didn't know anything about that, so that's really interesting to look into, which was the inspiration for the YouTube video that you saw. Um, my YouTube channel, which is kind of collecting dust, I haven't uploaded in a while, but it's really cool that you found that.
Yeah, totally found it by accident. I must have went to like 15 videos before I found yours. And yours is just struck out to me like, wow, there's a lot of effort and love that went into this. And I felt like I learned something when I actually watched it. I actually felt like, oh, this is what this is all about. I actually, because every other video was just doing a very brief, like everything was like archaeological. None of it was really anthropologic, like more or less what yours was, like diving into like the storytelling aspect of it.
Oh, that's my favorite part. I love
Yeah,
that. I
that's what I
mean,
appreciated.
I mean, I'm not as well versed in Taino myth. I know what they represent in the mythology, certain aspects of nature and things like that, and that's kind of all I need to know. And then I can go off on like a character design from there. It's like I would think of it as like a loosely based kind of
Uh-huh.
design. You know, I mean, I could take the time, but I don't know. I don't know if I have the patience. I know other people can speak, you know, on
Way
um
more, right? Yeah.
right on, yeah, on Taino myth, like
Mm-hmm.
way better than I can. I just like, you know, telling stories and kind of
Mm-hmm.
making it larger than life kind of thing.
But that's your gift. At least in my opinion, that's the gift that you have, and it clearly shows. You know, the fact that you're able to see one aspect of something that's so deep, and just pull it out, and you know, and either draw it out or sing it out or play it out. You know, it's, I don't
Well, thank
know.
you, I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
you're very welcome. But I don't know, not to gas you up. It's just it's just to be
No,
totally
go
honest. Yeah,
ahead, keep going,
yeah. To
it's
be
fine.
totally honest, it was an entry, it was an entry point for me to be more interested in something. So not that I wasn't interested before, it just felt so overwhelming to just
Hmm.
touch upon that world, and a lot of us not knowing about it too much because it seems so removed, yet we live with it every day.
Hmm.
So, but going back to the art, I'll digress now. You have these two loves. You have playing guitar, right? You have
Right.
the artistry that you displayed early. I mean, you showcased for us a little bit. And you said that you're looking forward to put them together somehow.
Hmm.
What does that look like for you? What you said that you're trying to possibly make like an EP to one of those projects. Is that more or less what you're thinking about it, or something? even
Yeah,
further than that?
that's an option. It's one of the
Okay.
things I was considering. I kind of want to do more like single illustrations and not so much sequential art, because
Okay.
right now I'm a little burnt out, so I'm like I'm trying to get back into it, but just do single illustrations that maybe have, I don't know, song lyrics that go with it, or
Mm.
something like that, or maybe each illustration has a verse or something, and you listen to the song while you read the comic or something like that. I don't know. I'm still
Wow.
kind of bouncing ideas back and forth and seeing how it goes. Um,
That would be interesting to actually just experience, because I know we have audiobooks now for comic books, and it's cool, but I don't know. It's always feel like it's missing something. And who knows? Maybe that's like the part that they're missing. They're missing that musical element to it.
well,
And I
yeah,
can.
I've actually read some audiobooks that have like book track with it. So they have some of the more like YA fantasy ones will have like a musical soundtrack that goes with it. And I usually grab those first because it really puts me into it. I don't know, something about having a soundtrack with it.
Uh-huh.
It's like a movie in your head,
Well, you mentioned
So,
the anime before. A lot of them have great introductions and outros, right? So,
oh my God, don't get me started.
like you could start singing the Yu-Gi-Oh song right now if you wanted to,
Oh, or
but
like every Naruto opening that's ever existed. It's so good.
so I guess that's what captures it. It's a spellbinding, I guess you can say.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
What's the most craziest thing you think you can do an artist and as an artist? Like what's the thing that scares you to do? Like challenge,
Ooh.
like your biggest challenge, you would say.
Oh man. My biggest challenge.
Yeah, I'm thinking of some too. I'm starting to think what would be the most craziest thing.
I don't know. I mean,
Or
I've
maybe
never.
things you've done in the past, if maybe we could start with
Well, I
that
mean,
in.
even this short comic that I mentioned, "The Signs of a Storm Brewing,"
Hmm.
that was pretty stressful, and it's only 6 pages, you know, because I'd never done like even close to a full length comic. So even doing like this little short comic and
Hmm.
actually having some kind of abstract story with it that's 100% my own that's kind of scary, because doing La Borinqueña, it's not my story. I'm kind of helping out. It's like a relay race of artists that are helping out with that. But doing your own story and putting it out there, you're writing it, you're drawing it. Um, that's the scary part. So I feel like if I were to do something longer than Signs of a Storm Brewing, maybe like a full length graphic novel or something, that's scary, I think.
Mm. Thank you for
But
sharing.
I'm glad I did it though. I feel proud. I
Yeah, I was
finished
gonna
it.
say, don't you feel Yeah, it must feel like gratifying at least, or
Right.
at least a big weight off your shoulder now that you've done it.
Hmm.
But I feel like that's the artist journey, right? We always take on these tasks that give us a lot of stress, but somehow they give us a lot of joy in the process. And sometimes we hate ourselves for it, but at the end of the day, we look back and like, wow, I'm happy that I did
Yeah, that's like the creative's curse, because like
it.
it's when you're creative, everything's so personal, and if it doesn't come out right, you like hate yourself, and
Yeah.
you're like you're the worst person on the planet.
Uh,
That's the double-edged
that's the
sword
other
there.
sort. So how is it for everyone that's around you, right? Like, do they understand what you do? Do they appreciate your ups and downs? Like, how is that going for you?
I think the music is easier to understand rather than me explaining what my inking job is.
Okay.
Because they'll be like, "Are you tracing?" Like, no, I'm not tracing. It's just it's different. The music is a lot different because I can just show them what I'm trying to go for. I'll just play them like a song or something, and they'll be like, "Okay, I get it." But the actual process of comics, which I didn't really learn until I started working on La Borinqueña, I didn't know that it was more of a relay race.
Mm,
Everybody has their own job, so that's something that I learned a couple years ago when I first started. Um, so I would say that one takes a little bit more of explaining to do, at least the art side of it.
right. And like you said, it seems to be more structured. It seems to be not more structured, but I guess when people think of it, they think of maybe the music is more understandable because it's just you that's playing it versus, like you said, the relay race with teams of artists that are working on this. I guess it's hard to fathom that teams of people be working on this one publication. I guess maybe possibly.
Maybe, yeah, and I think it. I think with the music, I'm sure there are aspects of it, especially when you're recording and things like that, that can get kind of intensive and in depth. But if I just play something, I feel like people automatically know what it's supposed to be or what I'm trying to say, because
Hmm.
it's just me playing it, and they're just listening. All they have to do is listen.
I
Or I
see.
could be totally wrong. I don't know. That's just my experience with it so far. I could be like, knocked on my butt about it later, but
Hmm.
you know.
Totally. Yeah, I get it. Thank you for sharing that. It's the reason why I ask these questions because I can't play an instrument for my life. I've tried. It's not in me. And the most that I can do probably is write, which sometimes even then I criticize myself heavily. I think we all do. But to play an instrument is a whole nother level. It's like your ears are part of it. Your fingers are part of it. Your patience. I would say is challenged quite a bit because you're constantly waiting for that. Is it called the metronome, where you're trying to figure out like if you're on tune or if you're
Yeah,
on
if you're
beat,
trying to keep time, for
kind of cheap
sure.
time, right?
Hmm.
So you play on what kind of guitar do you play with?
So I have a couple different ones actually. I mean, if
Okay.
if it were up to me, it'd look like a guitar center in my house. I wish. But now I have a Taylor GS Mini, which is a kind of a small body acoustic guitar.
Okay.
And then I have a Recording King parlor guitar, which is another small body guitar with a pickup so you can amplify it.
Okay.
That one I use for slide because it has that vintage tone that I like, that boxy kind of tone.
And the slide is it goes on your fingers, correct?
Right, it's like a
Okay.
glass tube that goes on your finger. Some
Okay.
people play it on the pinky. I play on my ring finger because that's most comfortable for me.
That's
Um,
cool.
I have, let's see, I also have a resonator, which is a lot louder than an acoustic because it has a metal cone in it.
Okay.
I have a banjo and a mandolin.
You have a mandolin and a banjo. Wow, you're
Yeah,
not playing games. You're
I'm
serious
still,
about this.
yeah, I'm still working on those, so I'll get back to you on
You
that
could
one.
charge a mission fee for people to come in.
So let me get good at it, and then we'll see.
Which one do you pick up the most?
Um,
Or does it depend on the day?
It depends on the day because I each guitar is for a specific purpose. Like if I'm playing more folksy, like indie rock stuff, like Joan Baez or any of that '60s
Uh-huh.
folk rock stuff, I'll pick up my Taylor. But if I want to play Delta blues straight from the Mississippi kind of stuff, I'll
Uh-huh.
picking up the parlor guitar for sure.
That makes sense. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Do you do that? Do you do that same process with when it comes down to your illustrations and your creations, as far as you know, designing worlds that are like you said, like the witches and everything else?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what I'm drawing.
Hmm.
It kind of determines how I draw it.
Hmm.
For the Inktober challenge, usually it's one illustration a day. So I was like, okay, so each day I'm going to do a pinup or a character design of each witch because
Okay.
that it kind of fits that way. I could get it done and post it real quick because I will spend hours on it. I'm like, I don't want to spend too long on this. I'll never get it done.
Uh-huh.
Um, so for that's how I approached the Inktober book. But for like the comics, I added like textures and gray tones because I wanted to have a certain feel to it. So it's more of like a myth that I came up with, and I wanted it to have that kind of ambiance with it. So it depends on what I'm drawing, how I approach
Hmm.
it. But usually I've been gearing a lot towards just simple black and white or monochromatic stuff. Because coloring I'm no colorist. I'm terrible at coloring. So if I can just do black and white or monochrome or like just one color that's going to be like the focus,
Then you're
um
all in. Yeah.
yeah, then I can do that. But yeah, it depends on what I'm drawing, kind of determines how I draw it, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Have you ever dabbled with 2D animation?
I have not, because I don't have the patience. Like I mean, sequential art is one thing, but
Mm.
drawing the same thing that's slightly different every time to get it to move, like the people that do that they're the ones that have the real magic. I don't know how they can just sit there at the table and keep flipping and flipping and stuff. Like I'll watch the old school, like the the
Hmm.
9 old men from Disney. Those are like the
Hmm.
legendary animators. I'll watch them draw like Jungle Book and
Right, Bambi or
right,
something.
and like Alice in Wonderland and stuff. And I'm like, oh my
Mm.
god, this is amazing. And it's kind of sad that that's been lost right now. I
Mm.
think I was actually in the middle of watching The Princess and the Frog, which was like the last 2D animated movie out of Disney.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that new Mary Poppins movie that came out, they actually had, I think I read somewhere that where they had to like bring people out of retirement to come and animate the 2D scenes because they don't have any 2D stuff anymore.
Imagine
You
getting
know?
that call. Hey, we need
Yeah, and be
you
like,
for
oh,
Harry Poppins.
we need you to animate this elephant. He's singing. We'll pay you.
We'll pay you.
Yeah. So I have a lot of respect for 2D animation. Like it's beautiful artwork. You know, I'm a big Glenn Keane fan, you know, all those guys, James Baxter. I could never do it. But I love seeing it and seeing it being created.
There you go. 2D animators. Sabrina gave you a crazy shout out just now.
I know
She's sharing the love right now, and I'm
it's a
sure
high
they,
honor.
I'm sure they feel the same way about you
Right.
with your craft, because I talk to different artists and they always give props to every other group besides their group. Like it's always funny because they'll be like, "Oh no, this is no big deal," and then everyone else that they work with is like, they're the ones," and it's true because it's like it's a collective effort. No one person can do something. I mean, they could, if they wanted to, but in reality, it's more fun and it's more creative when there's more minds working on something and all towards the same goal.
Definitely.
Do you ever find yourself working with other collaborators?
The only thing that I really worked with other people on are the stuff I work with Edgardo on. So
Yeah.
we worked on La Borinqueña, so it was me and a bunch of like veteran artists that were also teaching me.
Not for nothing. How was that like? Because like he said, he called you a rookie, right? So how did you
Well,
feel
those weren't
working
his
with
exact words, but you know, he's like, you're pretty green, you
him?
know. So it was interesting because I actually got to meet them at one of the talks early on. And these are guys that have been drawing comics since I was born, you know. So I'm definitely like this punk kid that, you know, shows up and be like, I want to draw too, you know, and they definitely taught me a lot. I learned a lot from them.
That's great.
Yeah, just about the comics process, how it's created. I actually drew off of one of Amelia Lopez's thumbnails for
Mm.
the first issue, so I'm drawing straight onto his thumbnails, a more refined penciled version of La Borinqueña. So I'm studying his composition at the same time, and this I'm still learning now because when I'm working on John Leguizamo's comic, I'm
Mhm.
inking it, and so I'm inking over Chris Batista's pencils, which are amazing pencils. And so I'm studying the way that he draws faces and the way he draws perspective, um, environments and things like that. And I find myself kind of picking up little traits of his, and you know, the way he cross hatches or things like that. So as I'm working, I'm learning with them too.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, it's interesting. It's a privilege.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine. I would feel so like me personally. I feel intimidated, and I'm not even an artist. So it's like,
Oh, I
but
am for sure.
but in your sense, you're more humbled by it. You're like, no, I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna learn, and I'm just gonna, absorb as much as I can, and do the best that I can.
Oh yeah,
That's
I'm they're Jedi masters. I'm a Padawan. You know, that's just how it goes.
that's cool. Do you ever see yourself working with a Disney or some major corporation like that?
Why, do you know somebody?
I
Because
wish. I
I
wish
could
I knew
use
somebody.
I could use a job. I
But
mean,
yeah.
that would be, oh man, I don't know what I would do. I'd probably lose my mind.
Oh man. No,
Um,
we need you. We need you.
no, that'd be incredible if I could do any kind of, if I could
Yeah.
secure any kind of opportunity like that.
Mm.
Oh man,
Is
that
that the
would be a dream.
pinnacle? Do you think? Just for artists in your situation, is like to get to that level? Is that what solidifies it for everybody?
I think
Or
for
does it?
some people it is like just to get to a studio, and it doesn't have to just be Disney, just to get to Blue Sky, DreamWorks,
Mm.
any Pixar, any of those, Sony. I think that that's definitely a stop. on their journey.
Mm.
It's not the end of it, I wouldn't say, because people always move on after a project and they find other things. So it's a constant going from this job to this job to this job. I would say that's your end. If that's your dream, then yeah, then you've made it. There you go.
There you go. Put it on the
But
wall.
yeah, I mean, that's been a dream of mine. If I could do that, that'd be great. But once I finish that, I'm like, okay,
What's next?
I gotta find something else,
That's true. You're always on the verge of doing something else. That's why you got to enjoy it while it's there. So we're wrapping up this podcast as we can talk for hours, but
sure.
To be fair to your time and to my time, what advice would you give to artists that are just starting out, or maybe they're in the same position as you? What would you tell them?
Whew. Well, if they want to draw, then they have to draw. At the end of the day, you should always draw what you like to draw. I know people always say you're supposed to draw like everything, and that's true. If you want to learn everything, you should draw everything. You should study from life, study anatomy, environments, things like that. That's all the technical stuff. But for me, I always like drawing characters and people. Like, that's my thing. I'm not much of an environments kind of person, but what I love to draw is characters. And if that's what you like to draw, then draw that, because people will see your passion in it. They'll know that you love drawing this thing, and then that ends up becoming your thing. Yeah, essentially it just draw from that. Draw from your passion, draw whatever would make you happy. Just create whatever fulfills you, and then just share it with people. Just keep sharing it. Show other people. Don't hide it, because then no one's going to see it, and you're not going to get anywhere. No one's going to know. Especially with social media now, you can do that. You can, especially with this Inktober challenge. I find a lot of good artists that way. With Visible Women, that's what got me the La Borinqueña gig. So
Mm-hmm.
if I didn't share my work, then that wouldn't have happened. So just draw what you like, regardless of what people tell you you're supposed to draw. Like, oh, your stuff is too anime. It's like, you draw those giant eyes. You do that. You go, Glen Coco. Like, you do that, and it should work out that way.
Thank you so much for your time, Sabrina. This has been a real treat, if I can say that.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome back anytime involving Element. This has been great.